iCloud. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Pete Caliendo. We're going back in the past here, 1999, when I was with the Schaumburg Flyers, coach, director, met a great friend of mine now, was enjoyable, was so much fun being together. He played for the Schaumburg Flyers at the time, but he is a former major league player. Tell you, 2 World Series rings, an all-star, 10 plus years in the big leagues, first baseman, not the pitcher. This is the first baseman all-star, Mr. Mike Marshall. We got him on the show, so hang tight. But before we bring him on, remind everybody, please subscribe to YouTube, Peter Caliendo. The channel is Peter Caliendo, 90 plus shows. Hit the subscribe button and it will update you all the time on a new show. We really appreciate it. Remember, it's all free, so that's all we ask, and it really helps to get the show out. So let's not even waste any time. Let me welcome my good friend from Buffalo Grove, Illinois, but grew up in Libertyville, Mike Marshall. What's up, buddy?
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, good to see you. It's crazy times, but good to get back with you.
Hey, what would we do without this? Well, we text each other once in a while, but now this is great to be on Zoom and actually see each other and visit a little bit.
Yeah, send a telegram.
That's right. What would they have done in the 1920s? You know,
yeah, what's a stamp?
Smoke screen. Hey, it's interesting. I want to kind of get into a little bit about your career because I think you had an incredible career and obviously, culminating with, 2 World Series and All-Star. You played, for great managers. You played for, with great players. But, where did it all start? Because I know it started in Illinois. Talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get into some other stuff.
Yeah, the typical, you see it every day in suburban Illinois, northwest suburbs of Chicago. Back then, it wasn't nearly what it is now with your little league programs and the fields and everything that they do year round. I mean, what you do year round, taking kids internationally, taking kids all over the country. I mean, we were pretty much seasonal. You play basketball and you'd play football and you'd golf and you'd play, you played a lot more sports here. Now, 30, 40, 50 years later, kids kind of pick a sport. And there's there's positive things in that. They're able to train year round and indoor facilities. We never had indoor facilities. And so, going through the Little League programs in Buffalo Grove and in the suburbs and playing American Legion ball and high school baseball. I was very fortunate. I think Fred Van Eyten. Fred was the baseball coach at Buffalo Grove and former professional player. So I was very lucky to have a guy, kind of a mentor that taught me the ropes. And then you make your decision about whether you want to go to college or whether you want to sign out of high school. And I was fortunate enough to be drafted by the Dodgers and chose the minor league route. So
wow,
18 years old, right out of high school. And there you go, heading off to Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada to play minor league baseball. What an experience that was. And 4 years later, I'm in the big leagues. So it was the right decision at the time, but it was a tough decision.
It's interesting. You brought up 2 great points. One, multi-sport athletes. And, it just seems to be a common theme. If you look at Major League Baseball, I think I've even interviewed some golf experts. I know in golf, there's only one PGA athlete, top player, who was not a multi-sport athlete. Major League Baseball players, it's like 95+%. I mean, there's got to be some benefit. You played a bunch of sports that had to help you a little bit.
Oh, no doubt. And I would like to see that come back a little bit. I know that, once you get to college or once you get professionally, obviously you're concentrating on your sport, but going through the little leagues, from ages 8 to 13, 14 years old, playing soccer, the advantages of speed and footwork, the weight training and the conditioning of being a football player. Sure, there's injuries involved with football. The team concept, being part of a basketball team and distributing the ball. Baseball is a little bit of a team game played with individuals, but again, you know, that camaraderie and that connection with being part of a team and playing different sports. I would like to see the kids do a little bit more of that. I know that they're able to play one sport almost year round now with all the specialized select and travel teams, but I think it really helped me.
You know, the other common theme that I kind of heard here, but it's interesting because you said you made the right choice at 18 years old to go ahead and, you know, and sign a professional contract. Some advice, because if you have to look back and let's say you didn't make it to the big leagues, you might be looking at it differently. Some advice to others out there that might be thinking about signing, you know, out of high school. Not everybody can handle it. It's not easy. Maybe talk about that.
Well, you know, the other great thing that's changed now also is if a young man decides to go the professional route early in his life, 18 to 22, 23 years old, and go after becoming a big leaguer and going into the minor leagues, there is such an advantage of still getting an education. You know, we have so many of our kids. Well, everybody's online now. You know, I'm at a Division II university, and all of our classes are online. Kids are still getting their degrees, and so the kids now could go and play professional baseball and still get a college education. And we didn't have that back then. But the decision was, if I was going to make it to the big leagues, I think getting right into professional baseball and learning what it was to become a pro. I also was very fortunate at the time, and I think they still are, you know, one of the top franchises and organizations in professional sports was the Dodgers. I mean, they really knew how to develop players. And so I was at an advantage. I got to play in the Dodger organization. And like I said, at 21, I'm in the big leagues, where if I go to college, I would still have been in college. I would have not been able to experience what I did. But you know, sometimes college is the right place for players to develop, and sometimes minor leagues are the way to go. But I just recommend that those kids that sign out of high school, they still get their education through online and eventually go and get their degrees.
Absolutely. That's so important. You know, 21 years old in the big leagues, incredible. Just had a friend of mine on yesterday, Marco Mendoza, pitched in the Mexican League at 17 years old in there for the Mexico City Reds. You know, it's interesting also. Did you know, when did you know you had these tools possibly to get, maybe not to get to the big leagues, but that you were pretty good? Were you always good like when you were 12, or did you develop later?
Well, I think so. I think size helped me. You know, I was always, I was always one of the bigger, more physical kids, strong. And so, yeah, I mean, I played golf, and early on, I played football, and, you know, I was on a good basketball team in high school, but I think baseball kind of found me. It just, my size and my athletic ability was conducive to becoming a professional baseball player, where the other sports I was good at and I really enjoyed them, but baseball was the one that really, you know, kind of jumped at me and said, this is the one that you can really perform at a high level. And when I went my first couple of years in the minors, when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, going up against even older players, kids that were coming out of college, I was always one of the top players in the minor leagues. And so I knew, okay, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, matter of fact, I believe if I have it correctly, yeah, I do Triple Crown, AAA baseball, 373, 34 home runs, 21 stolen bases, so you could run 137 RBIs. You know, Triple Crown, that's pretty talented no matter where you're at.
Yeah, I needed to take my minor league stats to the major leagues.
Well, you know,
You'd be talking to a Hall of Famer instead of just another
exactly.
guy.
But speaking about that, what got you to the big leagues, you think? What, you know, I mean, what's the difference between being a very good minor league player and then actually getting to the big leagues and becoming an all-star also in the big leagues?
Yeah, again, it's funny. You talk about you have the ability to take these kids internationally. And so back in the early 1980s. So my second year, I went to Colombia, South America, and played. My third year, I went to Mexico, played in Culiacan. My third year, I went to Barquisimeto, Venezuela, my third and fourth year, and played. So not only from a baseball standpoint about just getting better, but just from a life standpoint and growing up, playing international baseball, playing against Latin American players, learning how to travel, learning how to, play 6-7 days a week, playing about, with spring training, playing about at least 10 months out of the year. That's how you develop. And so what you do with your young kids and with your high school group, and we went on a trip to the Dominican and did very well. These kids, they need to get out of their shell. They need to expand. They need to see the world and how to live that life. And you know how talented these kids are all over. Then I ended up in part of my career and went over to Japan and played a year in Japan. And so that just every part of that just developed me into the player that I became.
You know, folks, so Mike Marshall and I were together with the Schaumburg Flyers. I was very honored to be able to sign him as a player. This is after his major league career. He goes and plays independent ball. Goal obviously was also to get into coaching. We're going to talk about that. But one thing about Mike, folks, every time I saw him, man, talk about a pro's pro. I'm watching him, how he takes BP. I'm watching him at first base. He's taking ground balls, but he's simulating plays. So he's throwing this. He may not throw the ball a second because nobody's there, but he's simulating. He drops a ball. He picks it up correctly. He had great habits. You and Jack Voigt. I mean, I remember, you hit a fly ball up in the air in the infield, and you guys are on second base. You're hustling the whole time. You're big league guys playing independent ball, but playing it the right way. And I want to mention Mike Marshall is also a coach. We're going to talk about this, New Mexico Highlands University, so college coach in Texas. So we'll talk about that, Mike. But back to when I talk about the skills that you had and, how you trained and everything, you created some pretty good habits. Talk about how important it is to create good habits and keep them, because it's a game of failure. And if we're not fundamentally sound, we're going to have some trouble getting better.
Yeah, we again, going back, before we played a game, when I signed out of high school and I went to rookie ball, the Dodgers had an infield instructor, an outfield instructor, a hitting instructor. They had all of their roving coaches there. I remember our infield instructor, Chico Fernandez, who had a career in the Baltimore Orioles, and we didn't touch a ball for the first week. We didn't touch a ball. All it was learning footwork, learning hand position, flat back, where your eyes were, what kind of movements. I mean, we just looked like a bunch of frogs out in the outfield, just doing our crow hopping. And so you just develop those habits about the correct way to practice. Jimmy Lefevre, who was a switch hitting all-star, I think second baseman for the Dodgers. He had just come back from Japan and was my manager. So how fortunate, what it's like in Japan with the training.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys go 6-7 hours a day. And so here, a guy that comes back from Japan, he trains me off the tee and off a soft toss. And so again, we're not just getting thrown into games. We're learning how to the finer fundamentals and how to develop memory, the mental side of the game. I remember, much like an NFL playbook, the Dodgers give you a handbook on cutoffs and relays and bunt plays and, proper conditioning and just the whole thing. So very, very fortunate that I was able to learn all those things. And when I watch your videos, and I went on some international trips with you to coach with you, just so impressed with what you give to the young kids that we do our camps and our clinics with, because I don't think that's emphasized enough anymore, and you're still doing it, and that's what I love to see.
We're going to talk about also, Mike, and a shout out to Jim Lefevre. Has been on the show. I think I've known Jim like you. I've known him since I was 15 at Mickey Owen Baseball School. And he still is motivated now as he was back then, and he's probably in his 70s, but just a fantastic guy. Another thing I wanted to bring up before we get into some of this, a trip to, I think it was Slovakia. I can't remember where.
Slovenia.
Slovenia. And
Yeah.
I was talking about bunting, and I said to this was like 10, 12 years ago, I think. And I said to the group that was there, I said, one thing I think we don't do enough of is we don't bunt with 2 strikes. And I think everybody's, jaw just dropped, and I was just changing the game. And I bring that up because I've seen guys now in the big leagues bunt with 2 strikes and be successful at it because, there's more pressure. What's changed in the game for you that you like, but also maybe some of the things that you think we're heading in the wrong direction when it comes to the development of the game, even at the big league level?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious that power, both on the mound and at the plate, has taken over the game. I was a little bit at my, 6'4", 6'5", 220 pounds and strong and could hit the ball a long way and pretty strong
You
guy.
weren't bunting.
I'm not, well, yeah, but I'm the norm now. These guys are so strong, and the weight training and the conditioning and the nutrition, but the game has changed. Pitchers are only expected to pitch 5 or 6 innings so they can go all out throwing in the upper 90s, and then they bring in the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. And the hitters, they don't have to move runners. They don't have to make contact. They don't have to put the ball in play. They've got to hit home runs. And if they strike out, it's not, I remember back in our day, you just didn't want to strike out. And now, so the power game, although it's impressive, guys throwing 100 miles an hour and every pitcher that comes in, but you can see they're really not pitching. You can see by the number of home runs and the runs being scored that it's not always that effective how hard you throw. I like watching, Zach Greinke and the Hendricks for the Cubs at 88 to 92 that are still pitchers, kind of the Maddox that still move the ball around, pitch to contact, get the double play ball. And I'm a little concerned about 15, 16 strikeouts a game and guys striking out 200 times because just like you said, the hit and run, the stolen base, the 3-1 contact play with runners in motion, bunting, it's left us a little bit, and I don't really know the answer, but I'm a little concerned about it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, and I agree. I think I don't have the answer either. The answer might be when they look at who wins the World Series. You look at the Tampa Rays; they're 20-11, I think. I'm watching them hitting the ball to the right side intentionally.
Right.
I'm watching things they do, the small things, and they're winning, and their payroll's not very high.
Yeah.
And and so I think, and I look at Boston, and I look at the Chicago Cubs when they won the World Series. They sprayed the ball more than most guys. So maybe what might happen, hopefully, because I think the game's a lot more fun in some ways, and I understand statistics, but maybe when they see teams winning that way, they might change some of that.
No, I agree. And I have no problem with analytics. I mean, I think it's kind of funny. I mean, back in the early and mid 80s, I mean, we just called, like Dusty Baker said, it was just baseball. We move as an outfielder, as an infielder, we move on counts, we move on outs, we move on who's hitting, we move on who's pitching. We knew to try to get a pitcher in the stretch. We knew to, try to get their pitch count up. I mean, all that analytical stuff we were doing, we just didn't call it analytics. We just called it baseball. So I think there's a place for analytics, but I also think when the computers take over a little bit and say, don't send that runner on the 3-1 count because your hitter might swing and miss. He might get thrown out. Wait, and maybe he'll hit a home run. I think we're lessening the game a little bit because that, like you said, Tampa Bay and some of these teams that maybe don't have the ability to get those 40 home run guys, they're still doing it and doing it successfully. And you're right. Maybe the people will realize that it'll go full circle and come back to a little bit more of a complete game, bunting, hitting and running, stealing. And, one thing I do see is I still see, and I know how much you emphasize it, I see the defense. I see that the guys can really play defense. Boy, the
Yes.
shortstops, whatever, I don't know what it is,
And you
500.
and you played with Alfredo Griffin, and look at some of
Yeah,
the guys now.
yeah, 500 chances a year and making 4 errors.
Yeah.
I mean, in college ball, we make 4 errors a game. That's the frustrating part of being a college coach, because the kids just they can't play. These guys can really play defense, so that part of it has not changed.
Absolutely. And then, again, folks, I think what we're saying also statistically wise, we understand it may not be smart to, to steal or to bunt, excuse me, with nobody out early in the game and all that statistically. Plus the guys in the big leagues can catch and throw pretty good, man. The
Yeah,
catchers are getting really good,
yeah,
and the guys tagging are getting pretty good too.
yes.
Um,
Oh gosh, the way they can. I mean, the most middle infielders for the Cubs, the way they let that ball travel and right to the bag and to the glove. And it used to be a high tag. I mean, the guy was safe. But now these guys have learned they get the glove, the ball, and the guy in any part of their body, and the foot's not on the bag, and the instant replay has changed the game. But the Cubs middle infielders are amazing.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
And an instant replay has really helped defense because now they're really focusing on staying with the runner, where
Yeah.
before they used to just fake tag.
Yeah.
Interesting. When you talk about hitting, you had to go up against some great pitchers, obviously. I was watching Tim Anderson just the other day with the White Sox, and I remember you were doing something not similar to this, but you might have. Uh, in the certain count, he must have known breaking ball count. And after the catcher gave the sign, once the pitcher was really pretty much ready going, he would move his feet up in the box and he got a double down the line. I remember you saying that you were in Dodger Stadium at times, even though you were looking that way, sometimes you can see the shadow of the
Right.
catcher because
Right.
depending where the sun was at, so it gives you ideas. So those are all things that's being a baseball player. Those are all things to help you get an edge, correct?
Right. And early in your career, just like you had said when you started off, I mean, getting to play with Dusty Baker and Rick Monday and Billy Russell, Davey Lope, Steve Garvey, Ron Say, it was Mike Sosha. We would sit in the clubhouses or at spring training, and the old time Dodgers, Sandy Koufax, and they would always be around Dodger Town and be in spring training, and that's what they talked about. They just talked about all the little edges and all the things, the mental side of the game, and how to prepare yourself to play. Now, one of the things also we didn't talk about, I think, with the replay and with the computers, is the strike zone.
Mm-hmm.
I think also the reason why we had to make an adjustment, not that the pitchers weren't great, but before the cutout of the strike zone and before the computers, pitchers could really pitch off the corners. They could get a ball, maybe even two balls in and out. And so as a hitter, you had to cheat a lot. You had to feel like, are they going to come in? Are they going to go away? Whether you wanted to dive or whether you wanted to move up or back in the box. Whereas today, a little bit, these guys are a lot more selective with the pitching because the umpires, they really can't get off the plate too much or they'll get fired, I suppose.
Right.
And so that the guys are throwing harder, but I think the strike zone is a little tighter, which helps the hitters be a little more selective.
Yeah, it does. And thinking about hitting, when you went up to bat, did you kind of guess with the pitcher what he was going to not guess, but educatedly guess what he was going to throw? A certain count. Did you see patterns? What was the mental part of or did you just have to worry about, hey, this ball's coming hard, I'm just going to react?
Yeah, now the guys are amazing today. I know I went to Dodger Stadium for an old timers game, and we had one TV with one VCR and these videotapes that had dust on them, and we'd have to dig them out of the closet to try to see the last time you faced Mike Scott or Nolan Ryan, and we put it in, and you'd say, okay, he's pitching me in early, and he's going hard early, and then he's trying to get me out with break and stuff. I went to Dodger Stadium a couple years ago. It looked like NASA. I mean, there was like 30 TV screens, and every angle, front, back, side, and so so these guys, these players are going in before before batting practice and early in the day, and they're watching all of the pitches that they face, the guy they're going to face that night, and all the tendencies. And we would keep a book, and of course, you had it in your mind how a Greg Maddux or a Vita Blue or somebody was going to pitch you. But now the technology, it's amazing. But we were doing that. We were just doing it in a different way.
Absolutely. And I wonder about that because I don't have the stats. That's something I think we'll have to look at. But statistically, you've got all this technology going on. But statistically, I'm not sure I'm seeing more guys hitting over 300
No.
or any better stats than we had 10 years ago. So I guess it can help maybe in certain situations, in key situations. So I just don't know, if the statistics are really helping that much.
Yeah, well, and that's the word, situation. What situation are you in? Are you leading off an inning and trying to get the pitch count up and trying to work a little bit and trying to guys on deck and the guys that are going to hit later, have them see some pitches, and you want to see some pitches? Are you setting a guy up for later in the game when a couple of guys are on? Are you walking up there with a guy on third and 2 outs and, you got to get a base hit to drive him in? I always like to, when I had runners in scoring position, my job was to drive in runs. I always like to get guys early. Even if I gave up a strike and I swung at a breaking ball in the dirt or whatever, you get 3. So I always got down early. And when, you come up and you're leading off an inning, you don't want to make that first pitch out on, a one swing, make it easy for the pitcher, because you're only hitting 280. So he's got a, over 70% chance of getting you out. And if you swing at the first pitch and you put it in, that's what the pitcher wants, low pitch count. So situation, every situation is a little different. Do you have guy on second base and nobody out? And I went the other way pretty well. So I'm trying to drive that ball to the right side to drive him in or to at least get him third for the next guy. 2 outs and a guy on first, I need an extra base hit to drive the guy in. And so, these are all the analytics and all the computer and all the mental side of things that we did. It just wasn't as publicized because of the analytics and because of the computers. But this is how you become that next level, not just physical, but the mental side of the game.
My question would be, how many guys actually go up? I don't know why I thought about this, but how many guys would go up to actually try to hit a home run? Or was that a result of just hitting the ball hard?
No, I think there's certain times. I think there's certain times when you are, sometimes it was, sometimes, you're the most surprised guy in the ballpark that you hit a home run. Just a product of a good swing and everything went together. But again, I think there were certain times when, when you would guess off speed for a hang and breaking ball or a changeup that you could sit on. I mean, I only hit 150 of them in the big leagues, so I'm probably not the guy to talk about trying to hit a home run. But, I've talked many times, I think you have also, to Barry Bonds. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Barry Bonds, about 80% of the time, he was trying to hit a home run.
Mm.
I mean, that was his. Now, he would say it was very simple. I remember Barry saying, all I'm trying to do is catch the ball with the barrel of the bat. That's Barry Bonds. So, and then that's Barry Bonds giving you a hitting lesson. But it makes a lot of sense. And nobody pulled their hands in better, got the barrel of the ball as quickly as possible, and caught the ball. Mm-hmm. And just amazing the simplicity of his swing, but how great it was. And to hit that many home runs, he had to be trying to hit home runs. And so, but yes, I think Kirk Gibson, they talk about the home run, the famous home run off of Eckersley. He wasn't trying to hit a home run, but he hit one. But I guarantee if you go back to extra innings, game 5 in the 88 playoffs against the Mets off of Roger McDowell, he hit a home run in the 11th inning to win game 5. And I guarantee Gibby was trying to hit a home run. No, nothing was happening. We needed a run, and he was trying to. That, to me, that was his greatest home run. But everybody sees the 88, walk where he's limping around the bases. But if you go back, that extra inning home run that he hit to get us to win the game in Shea Stadium, that was the biggest home run of the 88 season.
You mentioned Greg Maddox. What was your thought process, whether it's Maddox or somebody like him, like a Hendricks, your thought process going up to the plate, even with, let's just say, with nobody on, so there's no runners on base. What was your thought process in hitting him?
You knew that you were not going to get a pitch down the middle. I mean, Oral Hershiser and Greg Maddox are the two best, and Greinke now. Greinke is the Maddox and the Hershiser of my era. So if when we sit down with our college pitchers, the first thing we do is bring up Zach Greinke. We put the videos on and we just show them, in, out, up, down, in, out, up, down. We try not to pitch up very much because our guys are throwing 85, not 95. But when you face Greg, you knew you were going to be a ball out, 2 balls out. You knew you were going to be a ball in, 2 balls in. You knew you were going to be a ball below the knees. And every once in a while, he would elevate to keep you honest. He just did not throw the ball down the middle of the plate. And he had great movement. You watch the videos. I mean, his ball, really moved. It'd start middle and then jam you. It'd start away, you'd give up, and he'd still get the outside corner. Change speeds. We also try to get our pitchers, we chart our pitchers and it'll be 85, 85, 85, 84, 86. Greg Maddox, 93, 87, 91, 88, so he was just, he had it when he wanted it, but then he didn't always pitch at max effort. And so those are the pitchers that get the ball off the end of the bat, ground ball to short instead of squaring it up. Or a little extra and you get it on the hands and you hit a 300-foot fly ball instead of 380. And he was just, he was an artist. The same with Hershiser, the same with Greinke. It wasn't about power. He was going to outthink you. And one of the greatest I ever faced.
Absolutely. And then here in Chicago, we got Hendricks. Boy, he seems pretty good.
Same way. I just love watching Hendricks pitch. Just very rarely throws the ball down the middle. Very rarely.
And we tell, our audience, if kids are watching somebody, they need to be watching them. Nothing wrong with trying to throw the ball hard and working on increasing speed, but look at how these guys pitch, because I think you can do both. Listen, Mike, one of the toughest things, we got about 15 more minutes here left. One of the hardest things in the game, and you know it better than anybody, and that's you're going to fail a bunch of times, more than most sports. It's not easy to deal with. Early on in your career, obviously, even in the big leagues, you're going to have failure. Explain what some of the things you went through, maybe that you didn't do so well when it came to failure, and then maybe somebody taught you how to deal with that failure better. Maybe some ideas, how you dealt with it in the big leagues, so that way our coaches can kind of work with their players on those things.
You're hitting on something that is probably, for me personally, the most difficult thing that I dealt with. I probably handled that adversity. I was very hard on myself. I didn't like to fail. I wasn't used to failing. And what you have to understand, and what we try to teach our kids, is that I always talk about the 5th at bat. I always talk about that 5th at bat in a game, whether it's the 4th at bat or the 5th at bat. If you're walking up there and you've struck out, you're 0 for 4 and you've struck out 2 times and you're having a tough day, but the winning run is on 3rd. Does it matter what you've done? And then you go fast forward and you say, okay, I've hit a home run. I'm 4 for 4, and we're down a run with 2 guys on in the 9th. It doesn't matter. it's a game of, and that's where the statistics are tough. We try to teach, I try to teach our kids, they're so into their stats that there's only one number that counts. There's only one, and that's the R at the end of the game. Have you moved a runner? Have you made a play? Have you gotten the bunt down? Have you driven in a run with a ground out? Have you done the little things? And I think if we can teach our kids and teach the players that it's not about getting a hit every time, and it's not about hitting a home run. It's not about, if you can know that it's the whole game, the whole process of everything that you're doing, taking an extra base. So you are a great base runner. Taking that extra base and getting to third with one out, getting a good jump, reading a ball off the bat that didn't get caught by the outfielder and taking that extra base. And if you can play the entire game and know that have a short memory, and I'm saying all the things that I could not do, Pete.
Right.
It was in my craw. It just drove me crazy if, I'd hang on to a game or an at bat for hours or days. But so there's no one better to teach it that's what you have to do. You have to understand the team game. I see the players nowadays. I always remember, I wish I could have been that guy, Derek Jeter. I thought Jeter he had a Hall of Fame talent, but he wasn't, it wasn't the most beautiful thing. But I always saw him on the top of the dugout, whether he had struck out or made an out. I always saw him pulling for the next guy. I always saw him as the great teammate, that he was telling another guy how that pitcher got him out. Don't let it happen to you. And if I could have been a little bit more of that guy, and you're a great teammate, and a great teammate doesn't sit in the corner of the dugout and say, I struck out. What he does is he pulls for the next guy, tries to help the next guy and help the team. And so I think that's even why I got into coaching, because of the failures I had as a player. I wanted to teach these guys the things that I did wrong.
Yeah, and you've got so much experience, and obviously, folks, Mike went in to manage independent ball, ran a whole operation, director of baseball operations. You brought up the term "not used to failing," and we talk about it on the show sometimes, and it's really to the parents and coaches, and that is sometimes what we do when they're young is we put them in a position to succeed all the time, and real young, they don't know what failure is. An example would be if a player is very good, why not moving up in age? I know when I played with 18-year-olds. I wasn't very good, but I still played with 18-year-olds, and I competed a little bit, and it made me better. So I think sometimes the system the kids are in, travel teams that are 8 years old, they stay 9, 10, 11, 12, always with the same team, never experience anything different. And then all of a sudden, they go to high school. Well, they're not the best player anymore. Now they're failing. So talk about that aspect of the game that we need to kind of educate everybody in.
No, I totally agree with that. You have a team out of Houston, Texas, or a team out of Southern California, and they go, 45-1 in the summer. And then next year they over and over and over again, these kids, and we even get them, we get these, we get these all-state kids or these junior college All-Americans that we recruit, and we bring them in, and we're just like, you can have a great day and go 1 for 4. You can have a great day and do things to help this team, but we're not going to be here to coach you anymore if we don't win games. It's not about you hitting 300 or 400 or 500 or hitting 30 home runs. It's about winning games, and you have to bring that to the table. And so many of these kids are just used to winning so easily and putting up these statistics younger in their career, and it's not sustainable. Once you get to the college level, the kids get better. Once you get to the minor league level, the kids get better, and it's such a mental side of it, and the kids are having our kids that go to the college level out of high school or out of junior college, they have trouble with it. They do.
And would you say, being a college coach, when you're recruiting, you've got to look at this factor. It's a huge factor whether you're going to take a player or not. What else are you looking at that might, turn you off of a player if you're trying to recruit them for, for college baseball?
Yeah, um, we have to be very selective. Our school, the first thing is they have to get good grades. To be honest with you, it's very difficult to make sure that these kids are going to class and that they're getting their degree. And if they're not doing the things off the field to be a good player, then that's red flags. And so once we know that they're kids that get grades and they go to class, because look at our schedule, twice a week in the weight room at 6 a.m., once a week in the swimming pool at 6 a.m., Thursday afternoon after practice, total conditioning with our strength and conditioning coach. So that's along with being on the field 5 or 6 days a week, 5 in the fall, 6 in the spring, and going to class, carrying, all of our scholarship kids got to carry 15 units. So if you don't have a kid that's dedicated, that is there for the right reasons, I'd rather have those kids that are there for the right reasons. I think I can win with those kids rather than the superstar type kid, the kid that always has an excuse about not going to weights, or always has an excuse about not going to swimming, or spending time in the training room, or whatever it may be, or struggling with classes because he's not. We have we have some of our professors will say, I don't know who this kid is. He never comes to class. So it's the whole makeup from the college level. And I think most of your high schools, most of the kids are getting, good educations and good coaching. But that's what we look for more than, the kid hit 450, so, he's going to be a star for us. No, it's the whole package that they have to bring to the table.
Excellent. What's changed in the game of college baseball? Anything, or are you still able to do things, bunt, hit and run, steal, or has the game changed at the collegiate level also?
It's not as drastic as the pro level. We still, our top teams, they have the advantage where they have, low to mid 90 arms, a lot of Division I. We're at Division II. So a lot of kids that for whatever reason struggled at the Division I level are, over 90 miles an hour. We don't have that. We're a lot of mid 80s to upper 80s guys, but our top Division II teams, a lot of power arms, low 90s to mid 90s. But the nice thing about the Division II level, and a lot of teams do it, there's a lot of small ball, a lot of bunting, a lot of squeezing, hitting and running, a lot of stolen bases. You made the point about the catching. The catching is not at the big league or the Division I or college level, so you're able to steal bases a little bit better. So yes, the game is a little bit more the way we like it. There's a lot more strategy to it than just waiting for the 3-run homer.
And the game has changed in many ways. I'm going to ask you this because, I guess you could call us old school. I'm not going to speak for you, old school as far as tradition. I'm not as much of a traditionalist. Obviously, the show's called Baseball Outside the Box, not Inside the Box. So it's not tradition. But I got to ask you, because it's come up, obviously, in social media, Tatis, what a great player, great energy, just fantastic. And, he's got the bases loaded. They're up 7 and a 3-0 count. And I guess they gave him the take sign. I don't know if he missed it, but he hits a grand slam. What's your take on that? And in your day when you played, but also now?
Yeah, I think it's changed. I think in my day, you
could Mike Marshall do that?
Back then, no, I wouldn't. You couldn't, because you knew that you were going to, have a bullseye on you for the rest of the year, and it was frowned upon. 99% of the games, a 7, a 5, or a 7. It was used to be 5 runs because a grand slam could tie the game. but 5 up, you kind of had to stop. And but now with these offenses and with the home runs and everything, I kind of see that I've changed a little bit. I think that you never have enough of a lead,
Right.
and you know, you have to get 27 outs, and you can't ask a player to stop playing and stop, a team to stop scoring. And so I think there's time. I think we know, it's kind of like, when you're trying to embarrass a team.
Right.
When you're up 10 runs and you steal a base, or you're up 10 and the third baseman's way back and you bunt. I think there's times when you know that you're trying to embarrass, or you're rubbing it in, and you're not playing the game properly. But I don't think a 5, 6, 7 run lead anymore is safe. And I just think that it's the pitcher and the opposing team's responsibility to get people out. So
Yeah.
I've changed a little bit.
Yeah, and I
Well, how
remember.
about you? How do
Well,
you
no,
feel
I
about it?
agree with you. I can't disagree. And I remember Gordy Gillespie, one of the winningest college baseball coaches in the history of the game, here from Joliet. I remember talking to him several times. I've heard him on stage say, "Hey guys, first of all, if I try to score more on you, it's because I've lost when I was up 10."
Absolutely.
Especially with the aluminum bat. And
Yeah.
on top of it, he flipped it. He would say, that means I respect your offense. I can't
Yeah.
afford to hold off. And then the last thing a friend of mine told me was, well, what are we going to do? Like you just said, Mike, what are we going to do? If that's the case, let's just stop the game. It's over. There's no
Yeah.
reason to play on more.
Right.
Right. So, I'm with you. Look, you got to be able to field, but some people get criticized because, you bunt and the other team can't, defense it, and you're up 6 or something, but it's only the 4th inning.
Yeah.
It's your fault. Maybe you need to work on defense better and learning how
Play the
to field
game.
a bunt, right? Or throw a strike.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly. Especially if you're playing the Marines in Germany. You just
yeah.
got to keep piling it on, right?
Yeah, we got to tell that one, because I was going to go international right now. And, Mike and I with the Northern League, along with some other great players and coaches, were very lucky and fortunate to travel to Germany, all the Army bases during the Iraq War. It was very sad in a lot of ways because a lot of the guys were gone overseas. We were there to help kids with camps. We were also there to play softball games with the guys and gals that were there. And let me tell you, that's what I love about the military, Mike. Are they competitive, or are they
Oh,
competitive?
wow. Yeah. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about. I think
You said the
we
wrong word before.
we hit around the lineup, and we scored like 10 runs in an inning, and I called like a sergeant or a lieutenant or something. I don't know. He looked pretty menacing, but I called him over and I said, "Hey, do you just want to call the, why don't we come in? Why don't you come in and we'll go out and play defense?" Oh my goodness. I'm glad he didn't deck me. But he's like, "No, we're gonna get 3 outs," and
Exactly.
so he needed to be the guy that threw the 3-0 pitch, because he's like, "No, we're gonna finish this. I don't care what the score is. We're gonna play this game right, and we're gonna do the right thing." And so you and I tell that story
All the
forever.
time. And you know what? It's a great learning experience in some
Yeah,
ways for parents and players and coaches, because, a lot of kids nowadays, they've got the games, and if they're not winning the game, they can just start over. But
yeah.
that's not real life, and that's not baseball. You got to finish the game. I was in Italy with a team, one of our teams, and I remember this distinctively. We're losing, I believe it was 11-0, like in the 5th or 4th, it was a 7-inning game. And I'm with the parents, and some of the parents said, "Well, do we really need to continue to play?" And I thought to myself, I told the parents to continue to play. You got to finish what you start. I mean, we got to teach them. Well, we came back and it was 11-10. We lost, but we still came back. And I was shocked when somebody would say, because if our parents are saying that, well, then the kids are too.
Right, right. No, I think the scoreboard, for a lot of reasons at the younger levels, is a real detriment. Exactly. I mean, how are you going to get better if you don't play? You can't always play when you're winning, and you got to keep grinding and never give up. And that was the Marines mentality. Is he didn't even think about giving up or about quitting the game or about not getting us. That was their goal, to get us out. And it didn't matter how long it was going to take. And same way with those games. I mean, when you and I took that team to the Dominican,
Oh yeah.
we were we played like 7 or 8 games, and we only won a couple of them, but we were competitive. And it was just the fact that our kids were on the field with these tremendous athletes in the Dominican Republic and hanging in there and doing a nice job. And it didn't have anything to do with the score. It was all about the learning process for me too.
Absolutely.
And for these kids, you got to learn. You got to learn a life and baseball at the same time.
Absolutely. And Mike, since you mentioned that, I think it's important because you travel the world and you've seen, how hard some of these kids work in other countries. And I think our kids sometimes underestimate. There's a lot. I mean, you're talking about, the numbers are correctly. There has to be 25% of Latin players in the big leagues,
Yeah.
at least. And there's other players coming out of Cuba, Japan now, and you're going to see Europe. We got a young man who's pitching for the Pirates in the big leagues from Lithuania. You're going to see that more and more. And our young kids sometimes fail to understand that these kids are working harder sometimes than our kids are. And you better put in the work and the practice if you want to get to college baseball, minor league baseball, pro baseball.
Yeah, I think that a little bit back in the they don't have the advantages that our kids have with whether being driven to the ballpark or the computers or the iPads or the phones, and they know baseball like you and I. I mean, we just, after school or on a weekend, we just meet at the field. Everybody knew we were going to meet at the field and we were going to play ball all day long. And now it's the world has changed, the United States has changed, but everything seems to be just so organized. Everything has to be organized, and we have to, we're going to play for 2 hours or we're going to play this game. Well, it isn't like that in the Latin American countries. It's just, you're just playing all day. You're just playing the game, and it's raw, and you just keep playing. And both of us have spent a lot of time in Japan. And theirs is a little bit more structured.
Yes.
But it's more structured, but at the same time, there is no clock. I mean, nobody's looking at a clock in Japan. I mean, it's just like, we're going to play until somebody drops and practice. The first year I went and played in Japan, spring training started in like second week in January, and the season started in April. And I'm like, what in the world are we going to do in February and March? And so, I mean, we had like 10 weeks of spring training before the season even started. Then you played 140 games. So I'm just like, their people are crazy. But
well, I'm glad, but I'm glad you brought the Japanese, because that was my next thing to talk about, because of the fact that I love Japanese baseball. They take it to the extreme in a lot of ways.
Correct.
Sometimes, in Latin America, maybe they're not as disciplined. But they got great instincts, because like you said, they play the game all the time just on their own. They learn on their own many times. In Japan, talk about that, because I think your Japanese experience, what did you get out of that helped you? Well, it was at the end of your playing career, right, but your coaching possibly.
Well, I think what I found out in Japan and I played like 4 years in Latin America. And then I played a year plus in Japan. And I think the bookends of those two is there's a lot of ways to play the game. Mm. Latin America is a one-handed game. Everybody plays one-handed.
Yeah.
Japan, everybody plays with two hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, wow, but the same thing is happening. The end game is correct. It's just there's two ways to play the game. Same way with hitting. Latin Americans, they hit off their front foot. The Japanese hit off their back foot. But it doesn't matter what the body's doing. It's what is the hand doing? What is the glove hand doing? What is the arm doing? What is the barrel of the bat doing? Is it going into the hitting area the correct way?
And what's the result?
What's the result? And so you have 180 Japanese baseball and baseball in Venezuela, but that's what's so great about baseball. They're doing it totally differently and getting the same results because they're doing it over and over and over again. They're repeating it, and they're successful at their style. And I just love that. So when I teach or I coach, yes, we have fundamentals, but I don't try to clone kids. I take the best of what a kid has and refine it. And sure, if there's a fundamental flaw, you have to address it. But at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm not cloning kids. Oh, this is the only way you can hit, or this is the only way you can throw, because everybody has a body makeup that is natural to their ability. And so I think that's what really helped me with Japan and Latin American baseball is there's not one way to be successful.
Is there things that while you were there, because you mentioned spring training, wow, 10 weeks, were there things that you kind of shook your head and said, wow, what are we doing this for? You know, I bring the movie up, Mr. Baseball, because there's some reality to Mr. Baseball. You know, their practices and some of the different trainings. Or was there something, you know, because even when Tom Selleck went there, he was just, you know, in the movie, obviously, he was shocked at some of the things they do, but they're very successful.
Yeah, well, Pete, you would probably know it because I think you know, our computers are stopwatches.
Right.
But I started out and I played a lot of right field in Japan. And no matter whether I was trying to throw to third or home to get a runner, I had to do a double cut. So I couldn't, you know what, I couldn't throw it
all the way.
Man. No, the second baseman or the shortstop had to relay the ball.
Yeah.
And I'll be doggone if it doesn't work, you know, because obviously it's going to be a little more accurate because you've shortened the throw. But I'm like, let me throw the doggone ball home and maybe I can get the guy. And they're like, no. You throw to the second baseman and he's going to throw it to the next base. And it was just like, well, wait a minute, I'm only 200 feet away. No, you throw it to the second baseman or the shortstop. He'll do the rest. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Them take infield, man.
Absolutely.
It's just like, it doesn't matter. You got to do that double cut. And so some fun, you know, there's some funny stuff, but just over and over and over again. The poor shortstop, the Japanese shortstop life expectancy's got to be about a year. I've never seen a shortstop have to make more throws in an infield or a practice situation than our shortstops had to make. They had to be their rotator cuffs had to be shot after 1 year.
You know, we talk about on the show about Japanese baseball a lot because I love it in many ways. And they obviously, folks, they're not perfect.
No.
You know, what they do break a couple, not rules, but things that nowadays coaches are doing more. And you mentioned it, you know, teaching kids to be individualized. You know, the Japanese, they throw that out the window because you're going to do it their way, one way. You're not going to do it 5 different ways, like you just said. And they're successful at it. What I say is be careful. Don't let them listen to this show, because if they start changing some of that stuff, who knows how much better they might be. That's my take.
Yeah, no, I think they, it's to a fault.
Yeah.
It's to a fault. They need to, and I think you see the players that have come here, both from Japan, you know, the players that come from Japan, they've had some success, and especially the pitching, but I don't think, I think that, you know, I think that it's a big change for them. I mean, they're just so, they're so fundamentally, you know, just mentally, they just can't think out of the box sometimes. So yeah, I think it hurts them a little bit, where it's probably the opposite for the Latin player. Sometimes you think, oh, they're hot dogging it, or they're too flamboyant or whatever. But I think that has probably, you know, you can see the numbers, 25% of the players. I think that's been, the athleticism that those players bring has been a little bit more positive. But the neat thing about Japan also, that I learned is, they do a lot of really neat things in the outfield. They take away one side of the field a lot. And because their fields are a little bit smaller, their foul lines are a little bit smaller. We really you see Japanese, they really concentrate on moving the field a little bit. And so I bring that into our college game, in that, the tendencies of where a player is going to hit the ball, mostly opposite field in the college game. Guys don't have the bat speed against stronger pitching. And so we really concentrate on moving the field in the outfield, getting our outfielders compacted to keep the ball from dropping. And so that, so you learn it. So if you're not learning, you're not helping yourself.
Absolutely. And that's what's great about being able to travel around the world and learn from everybody. There's always something. That's why I tell people on the show, listen, we got people in the U.S. and around the world that are experts in the game. Listen to the show, because you can pick up stuff from somebody in Bulgaria, Lithuania. It doesn't matter where. Mike, the other aspect of it, you mentioned Latin players. I was just thinking that, what they say when they come here is they look at our fields and say, wow, this is way too easy,
Yeah.
because they play on rough fields. Hey, what do you think? We're going to close it off here and pretty soon. What do you think about, it'd be interesting to see, the Japanese are so traditional. I'm not sure we'd ever see a man on second, extra inning rule in the 10th inning. You put the man on second. I'm not sure you'd see that in Japan. Maybe too traditional. What's your thoughts about it in the big leagues?
Well, I think they've created it with the pitching situations. When our 4 or 5 starters with the Dodgers throughout you didn't even think about a reliever really until the 7th or 8th inning. And these guys were pitching, pitching to contact, getting quick innings, pitching complete games. And so your bullpen just wasn't taxed. I just think that the bullpens are just taxed to the point where you get these long extra inning games, and you run out of pitching. You wouldn't think in the big leagues that you'd run out of pitching, but
Right.
you do. And when the starter's only going 5 and 6, and you're using 4 and 5 pitchers to complete a game, then all of a sudden you get a 15-inning game, and you have to put a guy on the disabled list, whether he's hurt or not, because you got to get a fresh arm up. So I would have rather, and I know it's a financial thing, and not getting into roster sizes or anything, but I would rather have seen Major League Baseball go to expanding the pitching staffs, an extra pitcher or two, because I don't like it. I think it's a little hokey to put a guy on second. We did it in the Frontier League. I was a hitting coach in the Frontier League one year, and I didn't like it. But I think that's the reason. I just think that the pitching staffs in these extra inning games gets really taxed, and because your starting pitchers aren't pitching as long as they used to, and they're all out, 97, 98 miles an hour, it's created that. So I would like to, you're a little closer to it than I am. What's your thought process on it?
I'm a little bit too close to it, because in 2008 with the World Baseball Softball Confederation, governing body of sport, we implemented the extra inning rule, but
Right.
but there was a reason for it too. I don't mind it at the young levels, maybe to save pitching, to make it a little more exciting.
Time too, wasn't it? Wasn't it a
Yeah,
time?
well, the main thing for the Olympics was time.
Yeah.
The game was too long, and if you're going to, it could have been a difference of having baseball in the Olympics or
Yeah.
not in the Olympics.
Right.
So you had to shorten the time, and that was big. That was just one of the reasons, but very important one. So it worked there. But at the younger level, I could see Major League Baseball, because you said financially, right?
Yeah.
You can't have more pitchers. It could be a hassle. More guys possibly getting ill, more chances. Maybe just doing it right now. I would not keep it, obviously, at the big league level. But when they're talking about, possibly high school, because, high schools don't have lights, if they're playing after school, youth programs, it could be beneficial in a lot of ways looking at.
No, I agree with that. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's interesting,
And David Ross said, it was interesting. David Ross said, I actually heard about 4 or 5 guys, managers and players, who actually like it. They didn't like it at first. I was kind of shocked by that. I didn't think they would, but they're younger guys too. Most of them. They're not older like us. It's interesting is he said what it does is it shows what we can't do,
Yeah,
which means you can't bunt,
yeah. You can't bunt. You
I
can't move
can't hit and
around.
run, can't
Yeah,
steal. I mean, I
yeah,
can't do much, can't
yeah.
delay, can't do
Yeah,
nothing
I
really.
mean, and how many, and then decisions have to be made. Do I bring the infield in
Right.
and cut off one run, possibly giving up more, or do I lay back and hope that we can get the guy in from second? So it is fun, but it's just not something they're used to doing.
And what's interesting is they've said it statistically. Um, Man on third has a higher chance of scoring, no doubt, right? Even with one out. Um, Yet they don't bunt them over
No.
because, well, first of all, if it's a power hitter, I get it. If it's a guy
Yeah.
that can hit, I get that part. But sometimes I've seen them not bunt over even with a guy that can bunt because I think, Mike, people fail to understand, maybe address this. There's a difference between, because a lot of people will say, oh, he's a big leaguer. He should be able to bunt. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you haven't played. That's high speed game. You can't just practice it. You got to do it in game speed also, and they don't work on that.
No, I don't know what goes on in spring training. Obviously in the National League, the pitchers are still bunting. So there were probably a little more emphasis there. I can't imagine much in the American League teams that anybody's really bunting very much.
Right.
But back in my day, and then in the collegiate game, I mean, it's a station. It's just, I mean, you're bunting, you're in one of the rotation stations with a 90-mile-an-hour fastball coming off a machine, and you're doing right side with a guy on first, you're doing left side first and second, you're doing squeezes, you're doing slash. When was the last time you saw somebody slash?
No,
Pull the
a
bunt back
fake
and
bunt,
slash.
boom, hit,
No,
nothing.
yeah. And so, if you're not practicing it, there's a perfect example for your little leaguer and for your high school player. If you're not practicing it, if you're not working on it, you can't perform it with a guy throwing 95 miles an hour and two corner infielders bearing down on you. You're not going to be able to perform that.
And what
And
makes me sad too, Mike, is you're hearing a lot of coaches at the young levels. Well, we're not going to work on bunting because they don't need it when they get older in the big
yeah,
leagues. First of
yeah,
all, how many are going to make it to the big leagues?
yeah.
And how about worrying about playing and having fun at that particular time and teaching all the skills? Why worry about what's going to happen in the big leagues?
Well, and I also think it's a great tracking tool.
Mm,
Go back to Barry Bonds about talking about the ball, catching the barrel of the bat with the ball. Well, you remember we were huge with Pepper, playing
yeah.
Pepper,
You don't see that
tracking
anymore.
tracking the ball to the barrel of the bat, and being able to control where the ball goes off the barrel of the bat, pulling your hands inside. Well, it's the same concept with bunting. And what a lost art. I mean, I guess it's because they did, because they didn't want to tear up the fields or something. But you and I are, I mean, just think of how many great things happen in a 4 or 5 person pepper game, and you
Absolutely.
and
So
you
many
see those
skills.
old films from the 40s and 50s, and everybody, that's how they practiced. They played pepper. And so I think bunting can also help hitting. It can
Mm.
really help the tracking the ball.
I remember seeing Ichiro in the World Baseball Classic. It was the first inning, man on first and second. What does he do? He lays a bunt down, moves it to. He's a Hall of Famer. That's
Yep.
the Japanese game, right? Score
Yep.
early, play defense, and pitch.
Yep.
They have a chance to win.
Yeah, you take advantage of your scoring situations, and you see now a lot of strikeouts. A lot of innings are lost with the strikeout.
Yeah, and I think kids are looking at. I mean, it's not as fun, to watch. Sure, home runs are fun when they happen, but as
Yeah.
far as the whole game, it'd be a lot more action. That's why, again, every time you see man on second, the extra inning rule, there's always something
No,
happening.
you
That's
make
kind
a
of
great
fun.
point. It is fun, and maybe that rule will bring back some of the fundamentals and some of the finer points of the game.
Yeah, let's hope so. Hey,
Yeah.
Mike, this has been awesome, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Catching up with you, how great. Can I say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say anybody that's watching this, parents that have kids, I'm just not saying this because you're my friend. I have coached, played all over the world at every level. Everything, my son played pro ball and played college baseball. So I started him at 5 years old. I've never seen a guy put together a better camp, a better clinic, better teaching tools, a better trips internationally, nationally than Pete Caliendo. This guy is Mr. Baseball. And if you have an opportunity for your son or daughter or to be a part of anything that Pete does, do it. Pete, I'm telling you, I've been all over, and you love the game, and it's an honor to work with you, man.
Thank you, Michael. That means a lot to me. And folks, just so you know, I still remember, and I remember some of the things we did together. And one of them was, I'll never forget this part. Here you are, a former big leaguer, going to play independent ball. We're in a cage in the winter, I believe it was, or at the workout. I can't remember. And you were asking me what you thought about your swing, and that just goes to show that anybody can learn from anybody else, and the respect that we had for each other. So God bless you, man. What's next for Mike Marshall coming up now?
Well, I'm still possibly, with the COVID situation, we delayed our fall ball for college. The kids are going online, our athletes are going online, and we're hoping that maybe in New Mexico that in October they'll let the kids back on the field and start some training, and possibly in the spring, have a regular season. But it's been difficult. So. But I've been blessed with my son and daughter. Now I'm 3 granddaughters, and
Wow.
Mary, my wife of well over 30 years, is we go back and forth and help raise the grandkids and spend time with our kids. And so, I got at least one more chapter of life. So we'll see what happens.
No pro ball in your chapter?
Oh gosh, too many resumes have gone to the trash heap. I tried.
Unbelievable. Major League
Yeah,
Baseball, the
and I
experience you
got to,
have.
but you know what? There's a reason for everything.
Sure.
And God had a plan that I was going to go to, end up at, a place I never played was college baseball, and here I ended up finishing up there. So it's been great.
Yeah, and I think, you being in college baseball, to me is in some ways a lot more important because you're teaching these young kids who are, the real things about life as early as possible, not in pro ball. So I think that's a great benefit, Mike. Man, this has been awesome. God
Yeah.
bless you, and best to the family.
You too. You
All right.
too. All right. We'll get through this. Okay.
Absolutely. I know
All
we
right.
will. I'm very confident in the United States of America and also our
Yeah.
medical people.
Yep.
And I think, we'll be helping people around the world. I think other people in the world will be helping us because there's some great medical people everywhere. So
Yeah.
I'm confident like you are.
Yeah. And you and I still got that Italy trip to make. So I'm crossing my fingers.
Absolutely. We got to do it. August, folks, August 2021, excuse me, 2021. We're going to Italy. So if you're interested, email me, caliendo19@gmail.com. Mike Marshall will be on that trip. So how's
Yeah.
that? We just
Yeah.
guaranteed
There you go. All right. It's
Mike
done.
Marshall's on that trip. So folks, that's going to be a 16, 15, 14-year-old team. Yes, we do
Oh,
play different ages like they
great.
do all over the world. It's great for young kids. And the main thing is, as long as they, that 14-year-old can compete with the 15, 6-year-olds, not a problem. Or, safety's an issue. If they can't, then obviously we're not going to put them on the team. But if they can, we will welcome to the team. So, all right, Michael, God bless you, man. To say
All
hi
right.
to
You
the
too,
family.
Pete. Bye.
Folks, that's Mike Marshall. I'm Pete Caliendo. Special thanks to our producer, Brian Kroc with the Lineup Media Group. And special thanks to everybody in the U.S. and around the world. Don't forget, subscribe on YouTube, 90-plus shows. Just hit the subscription. Peter Caliendo is the YouTube channel. Thanks, folks, for joining us today. God bless you all, and we'll see you on the next show.